This week on Tabletop Witchcraft marks the start of my Dwarven Series here on the channel. And what better way to kick it off than with this Dwarven Pillar with glowing runes. Hey there, and welcome back to Tabletop Witchcraft. This week marks the start of my Dwarven Series here on the channel, a series that I've been wanting to do for quite a while now. And we're going to kick it off with this Dwarven Pillar. It's got a really cool glowing rune effect in it. You'll have to watch the video to see just exactly how I did that. And I'm really excited because this video is actually a collaboration sort of between myself and Scott Ismail, who's a local woodworker here in my state. He's got a really cool Instagram handle, Paladin Woodworking Maine, and that's M-A-I-N-E. Head on over there, check it out. When you see this table he made, it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's so awesome. It's got lights all over it. It raises up and down. It's so cool that Wormwood actually sent a cast to his house to film an episode of Worm Life. And you've probably seen some of his work on the hit show Critical Role. So it's pretty cool. I'm excited to work with Scott. The shape of the pillar actually has a little something to do with the overall build itself and the collaboration. And at the end of the series, there will be an epic build. So to unlock the true potential of this pillar, you'll have to stick around until the end of the series. I also want to thank Gerard Boom. Thank you, Gerard. He has helped support the channel by sending me a little gift package with some jigs and some other materials for the Proxon, which I'll be making use of in this video. So, if you're ready, let's go grab some supplies and let's get crafting. Okay, so we're going to kick off our Dwarven series with these pillars here, and we're going to cut out this shape out of the plans, and you'll find that this shape is going to have some significance towards the end of this series, but you'll have to hang around to see just why. Taking two 2-inch pieces of XPS foam, we're going to hot glue them together, and you only need a little bit of hot glue, and I like to kind of spider web it on there to hold them in place. Now using the plan, you can see there's a little dot there in the middle, so I can mark the exact center of that shape, which will allow me to place this piece of the jig dead center on the foam. Now the jig that I'm going to be using here was supplied to me by Gerard over at Shifting Lands. Thank you, Gerard, for that. I appreciate it. It turned out to be very handy when making these pillars. Real easy to use, and you'll see that even though I had a decent amount of hot glue, again kind of spider webbed between these two pieces of foam, it still cuts fairly easy right through it without any problems. And there are some more complicated jigs on the market that you can buy right now. This obviously is one of the easier ones, and if you're going to pick up a jig, this is probably a really good, great beginner one to start out with. Now we're taking a measurement for the overall height of the pillars here. And this is a specific height for me for this series. You don't want to go any smaller than this on this base, but you could obviously go a little bit larger if you'd like. Now this is a circle jig that I made. Again, you can buy these online. This is a fairly easy one to make. And what I'm trying to do is line up the dead center of this shape on the pin before the jig. Then all you have to do is turn the heat on and it will slide right in place. Now right about here is the tricky part. You want to kind of keep spinning it as you're turning off the Proxon. That way the foam doesn't stick to the wire. And if it does, just peel it off real slow. Okay, now this little piece right here, I did want to measure it out. Again, you'll see why in just a minute that these measurements are important to this all fitting together properly. Now I just put a line of hot glue around that base, stick this in there, and then I'm going to add a little bit more hot glue to secure that bottom piece in place. Now a neat little trick, you put this on parchment paper, it'll peel off real nice. And I like to slide it around, that way the mat doesn't get too hot and it keeps rubbing over a cool section so it kind of cures faster. Now with these flashlights, it fits in there nice and flush. You can find that flashlight along with all the tools that I'm using in this video in the descriptions below to all of the Amazon links. So cutting this section out here, you can see all I did was offset the wire on the proxon to get that nice angled cut, flip it around and do the same to the other side. And you want to make sure to keep that piece of the proxon jig right there steady when you're pushing that through, because it doesn't want to move on you a little bit. And we'll rinse and repeat for this smaller section until you have a whole bunch of stacks like so. And basically what we're doing is we're going to use the proxon to slice all these pieces of the pillar off, kind of like a cold cut slicer in a deli. And we'll add some stone texture to all these pieces as well as the base pillar. Now we're going to work on the top section of the pillar, as you can see on the left, the final design. So basically we're cutting out a rectangular shape to match that piece right there. Heading back to the circle jig, cut this out again. Now to make it a little bit more interesting so we don't just have a squared piece there for the top of the pillar, I'm just cutting the corners off on each side just to make it a little bit more interesting. Then I'll go back to the plans here and with an X-Acto knife cut out that shape of that rune for the pillar. And this was kind of an interesting part of the project, trying to come up with a design that you could completely cut out and didn't really mess up the shape when you were done. Because a lot of these designs for Dwarven runes or whatever, they kind of overlap each other, in which case, you know, obviously you'd be cutting big chunks of that rune out. Now to conceal that cut right there, we're going to put one of these little design pieces here on the end, and that's also going to help hold that together. And as you can see, it's covering up almost the entire cut for that section. Now you had to have seen this trick if you've been following my channel for a while. We're going to place some magnets, and we just put a little dab of paint on each side. Make sure we set this down exactly where we want it. And now we got two perfect spots, locations as to where we want to put the magnets so that they line up. Now if you're making more than one of these pillars, which I'm assuming you're probably going to, what you want to do is, you know, try and line up the polarity so that's the same on all of them. It's not a big deal, but it would be nice to have all the tops be interchangeable. And as you can see there, all I did was just put a black dot on each side of the magnet, so I make sure to put the right side of the magnet down into the glue. And a neat little trick, use the hot glue gun to make the hole a little bit bigger if you need it. And then place some hot glue in and then let it sit for a minute. Don't put the magnets in the second the hot glue is in there. You've got time to work with it. And to be honest, when the glue is a little bit cooler, the magnets won't flip because they like to spin on you when you drop them into really hot glue. So put them in when it's a little bit cooler. Again, as you can see, you can work with it with your hands a little bit as well if you do so. And any of this glue that's bubbling up over the top, you can actually take your hot glue gun and use that to smear over the top of the magnet to help keep it in place. Now to match the design of the top portion of the pillar, we're going to just cut the corners off of this cap as well. Now when you mark these sections out, you really want to make these marks on the top of the pillar cap. You'll see I transferred those over here. That way you can see them easy. And I turned the Proxon on and had the wire pretty much right up against the high fence because I really didn't want to go in too deep here. And just press that right into the wire and you'll have a nice little design when you're done. And I'd probably suggest dry fitting this first, so to speak, and put a little line around it with a pen. That way you know you're lined up nicely when you go to put the hot glue on. Now we hit this up with some Mod Podge, black paint. You can thin it down a little bit with some water if you'd like. And I take a smaller brush to get in the cracks there of the rune. So it's just the black and then the graphite gray. Then I'm taking this pale gold and I'm really kind of just making sure to hit the whole section here, but I'm not being too careful with it because we're going to dry brush over this entire thing, as you can see here, dulling this down now with the pewter gray. And we'll come back in when we're done to do some highlights to bring this gold color back out. I wanted the gold to look like it was part of the stone, not like it was painted on there. And you might have heard me talk about this dry brush in some of my previous videos. I absolutely love this brush here for dry brushing. And this is just a homemade black wash. And now we'll just do a little highlight here with some of that country gray. Now here's where we're going to make the gold part of this stand out. And it might not look like I'm really doing much here, but what I'm doing is I'm doing an edge highlight of this gold around all of these detailed sections. And although highlighting or edge highlighting one of these doesn't seem like a lot, once you've edge highlighted all of the gold sections on the pillar, it really stands out and it really looks nice once you're done. Now I wanted to dirty up the bottom of these pillars, so I took some burnt umber and iron oxide pigments. These pigments can be kind of hard to find online. They tend to become out of stock quite often. I'll have, again, a link in the description below, but at the time of this video I think they were out of stock, but just kind of keep an eye on it and pick them up when you can. Now this is a lens for like a soft box, like for lighting when you're filming, and this works really great to color the rooms any color you want. You just have to roll it up, slide it right into the top portion of the pillar. But I like to take some 320 grit sandpaper and sand this down because it sort of disperses the light more, so it's not such a clear color to the room. It really makes it actually kind of a little bit brighter by doing this step here. So I'd highly recommend if you do that. And these come in all different colors: blue, green, red, purple, whatever you like. And make sure to do both sides of this as well, not just one side when you sand it down. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to make these pillars, but you don't have a Proxon, you can still do it. You can cut these pillars out and all the foam with an Olfa knife and just go that route. And leave it without the runes. You don't have to have the glowing rune effect. But if you wanted that, you could still do it. You can take the method that I used in my sewer tile series, where you're just going to score out a little channel on the top half and the bottom half of those pillars, and then pull the foam out, and then glue those two halves together. The sort of decorations on the side of the pillar would cover those seams up anyway, and you're never going to see the cut foam on the inside of the pillar where the flashlight's going to be. One thing to note, the flashlight does get a little warm, but I didn't have any issues with anything melting or deforming on me. I have a lot of great videos planned for the series. I'm super excited. Some of these ideas I got going on, Scott doesn't even know about. So everybody, leave some comments below. Let me know throughout the series how I'm doing, if you think Scott's going to be impressed or not. And yeah, if you took anything away from this, please remember to like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification for all further notifications here for future videos on the channel. Head on over to Patreon. A lot of great tiers over there. Some really great people joining that. I'm really enjoying our conversations and getting some ideas from some people over there for some potential new videos in the future. All right, until next time, I'll see you around.